Gabriela Diana Villarroel, born in 1998 in Argentina, was the daughter of a Bolivian couple. However, when she was 6 years old, her parents separated, and she was raised by her mother Liliana Chambi and her stepfather Cesar Garcia. Gabriela had a younger sister, Sunilda, who was 4 years her junior, and they shared a very close bond. The family lived in a residence in the Villa Lugano area of Buenos Aires, alongside their maternal grandmother, an aunt, and some tenants who rented rooms. According to those who knew her, Gabriela was a quiet and unassuming girl who did not enjoy parties or dances. Instead, she preferred to remain discreet, avoiding attention by not wearing makeup or revealing clothing. However, beneath her gentle demeanor lay the normal rebelliousness of adolescence, leading to significant confrontations and arguments with her family, especially with her grandmother. At a critical juncture in her teenage years, she could no longer endure the tensions at home and, along with her sister, decided to run away. They sought refuge for a week at the house of a woman named Marisol, who was a paternal aunt. During this time, Gabriela expressed an almost desperate longing to live with her biological father, hoping that this change would alleviate the conflicts that suffocated her. Unfortunately, it appeared that her father did not share this desire, as he had his own family and complications to contend with. In 2016, Gabriela was in her final year of high school. However, her family's precarious economic situation compelled her to seek solutions to support her studies, as they were unable to provide her with the necessary resources. Both she and her sister lacked access to computers and the internet, which led them to frequently visit a nearby cyber cafe just a few meters from their home. On Friday, July 29, 2016, what began as a typical day took a tragic turn in the life of the 18-year-old teenager. That afternoon, after leaving home with Sunilda to head to the cyber cafe, Gabriela abruptly changed her plans. Just 2 blocks away from their destination, she informed her sister that she would wait for her 20-year-old boyfriend, with whom she had a boyfriend. To everyone's surprise, a few hours later, the boyfriend arrived at Gabriela's family home, inquiring if her mother knew anything about her. While everyone had assumed they were together, his concern suggested that something was amiss. Gabriela had vanished just 5 blocks from her home, and the last person to see her alive was her 14-year-old sister, who recounted the final moments before they parted ways. The initial search focused on Gabriela's paternal relatives, where she had sought refuge on a previous occasion. However, her aunt had no information about her whereabouts and had not heard from her. The family was soon engulfed in anguish, fearing that the young girl had been forcibly taken for some nefarious purpose. In response, her mother filed a missing person report at the 48th Police Station of the Federal Police Station. Gabriela's cell phone was active until at least 7 p.m. that Friday night, and according to some sources, there was activity on her social media accounts until later that day. Some family members attempted to reach out to her through direct messaging on one of her accounts and noticed that their messages had indeed been read, yet Gabriela did not respond. During the early hours of Saturday, her relatives, led by her mother, staged a protest, urging neighbors to assist them with any information or clues to locate the young woman. Thus began a desperate search in hopes of finding her before it was too late. Gabriela's phone had since been turned off. The last time she was active on WhatsApp was at 7:26 p.m., and thereafter, there were no updates about her. The boyfriend was with her family, visibly distressed and unable to comprehend what had transpired during her journey. The authorities contacted Gabriela's paternal aunt, seeking information regarding her father's whereabouts. When they finally located him, the man initially believed it was a cruel prank, as this was not the first time he had received calls with false information. Upon arriving at the police station, he found himself bewildered and disoriented, facing authorities without any information about his disappearance. After various interrogations conducted by detectives with both the 14-year-old sister and some of Gabriela's friends from school, unsettling details emerged that quickly led them to a potential suspect. This individual was believed to be the person who had picked Gabriela up that Friday afternoon. Several neighbors had reported seeing her previously walking hand in hand with an older man. However, for reasons that remained unclear, no one had been willing to speak up, fearing repercussions for their families. The paternal aunt informed the police about the circulating rumors. One neighbor even confessed to having seen Gabriela months earlier on a bus, accompanied by a man who was sitting on her lap and stroking her hair. When this individual inquired if the man was her boyfriend, she replied that he was not, he was her uncle. At 9 a.m., Inspector Nail from the Human Search Department contacted the authorities to discuss the rumors within the neighborhood. Reports indicated that Gabriela had been seen on line 80 of a bus with this individual before the winter break. This person was identified as her uncle, Nestor Quintana, who was observed inappropriately close to her on the bus, sitting on her legs and caressing her hair. The police concentrated their efforts on this individual, making the investigation urgent. They quickly tracked him down, and his identity astonished many, particularly Gabriela's family. Nestor Quintana, born on August 18, 1986, in Alber Corrientes province, Argentina, was married to Elizabeth Chambi, who was Gabriela's maternal aunt. Nestor had served as a corporal in the National Police and had been with the Argentine Naval Prefecture since February 16, 2016. Information revealed that a few months prior to the events, he and his wife had been living in the same household as Gabriela. However, after separating from his partner, he moved into a room at a boarding house near the family home, placing him under the police's scrutiny. Nestor was interrogated on 3 separate occasions, and the tension escalated with each round of questioning, as his responses alarmingly contradicted one another. Nevertheless, he was released after each interrogation, even as the investigation into his involvement continued. As the investigations progressed and detectives unearthed more evidence of his involvement, Nestor began to feel the mounting pressure. Fearing that the truth would surface, he voluntarily presented himself at the police station. The authorities suspected a connection that extended beyond the familial bond, and upon questioning Nestor again, they noticed his answers were fraught with inconsistencies. He became increasingly nervous and struggled to recall the last time he had seen Gabriela. When asked for her cell phone number, he claimed it had been stolen in the La Boca neighborhood of Buenos Aires. Additionally, he alleged that during this supposed robbery, he had lost 5,000 Argentine pesos, approximately $350 at the time, which he claimed to have withdrawn from an ATM. However, he could not identify the ATMs in the area from which he had supposedly taken the money. Under the intense pressure from the police, Nestor ultimately broke down and confessed to a horrifying crime. He claimed to know where Gabriela was and informed the authorities that the young girl was already dead. This revelation plunged Gabriela's family into a harrowing ordeal as they desperately sought justice. In his stark confession, Nestor disclosed that Gabriela was in the room of the boarding house he was renting, which, as previously mentioned, was in close proximity to both his memory and the place where he had last seen her. According to him, he and Gabriela had gotten into an argument, and in the heat of that confrontation, he had taken her life. Security cameras in the area had recorded the couple heading to that address, prompting the authorities to visit the location to verify Nestor's account. On the night of August 2nd, when the police raided the premises, they were met with a macabre scene. Gabriela's lifeless body was discovered in one of the 3 rooms, wrapped in a sheet and stuffed inside 4 garbage bags, which had been meticulously arranged to ensure complete concealment. The police mobile criminalistics unit worked diligently at the scene to determine the cause of death. While investigators initially suspected a crime within the context of an attempted sexual assault, the reality was far more disturbing. No one in the family could fathom that such a heinous act could be committed by someone so close to them. Surprise and horror intertwined with disbelief. Caesar, the teenager's stepfather, was visibly shaken before the media. For him, it was a shocking revelation. During the years they all lived under the same roof, there had never been any issues between them, just a normal uncle-niece relationship. "This is unimaginable," he expressed, clearly grappling with the reality of the situation. Marisol, Gabriela's aunt, who assisted in the investigation, was equally astounded. She stated that until Nestor's arrest, he had never raised any suspicions. The family only knew that the uncle had committed the crime, but the motive remained shrouded in mystery, intensifying their anguish. What no one in the family realized was that behind the seemingly benign uncle-niece relationship lay a secret love affair that continued even while Nestor was married to Gabriela's aunt. In his statement to the police, Nestor revealed that the clandestine relationship had been the catalyst for his wife's separation and the reason he had rented a room just a few streets away from the family home. The boarding house where the body was discovered was, in fact, the very location where the couple met. The relationship was corroborated by Gabriela's sister and several school friends, who testified that they began dating when she was only 13 years old and he was 25. They also affirmed that the relationship was fraught with issues as the girl suffered from gender-based violence at the hands of Nestor. Reports indicated that he had exhibited multiple episodes of jealousy in their presence, including instances of physical abuse. Furthermore, they revealed that there were several audio messages on Gabriela's cell phone in which he verbally assaulted her. The arguments intensified in the months leading up to her death, particularly after the teenager started dating her boyfriend, which became the primary source of contention between them. The results of the forensic analysis established that the cause of death was mechanical asphyxia due to strangulation with the hands. Experts from the Forensic Medical Corps determined that the crime occurred on Sunday morning, indicating that Gabriela had been alive for a day and a half after her disappearance. In the days that followed, relatives and neighbors, overwhelmed by pain and indignation, held a march demanding justice for Gabriela in front of the police station where the complaint had been filed. The outcry grew louder with shouts echoing the demand that there should be no more victims of femicide and insisting that Nestor be punished to the full extent of the law. The doubt that surrounded the crime transformed into a profound fear for the family members. Nestor's confession to the police held no legal validity until it was corroborated in the judicial arena, leaving the certainty of his guilt in suspense and intensifying the anguish of those who longed for justice. This fear was not unfounded. Before the judge overseeing the proceedings, the man recanted his initial testimony, claiming that he had been pressured by police officers since the early hours of August 1, 2016. In his own words, despite having requested a lawyer from the outset, the police had outright refused him, insisting that he was merely a witness and that he was testifying under oath. Although Nestor retracted his initial statements, substantial evidence and testimonies corroborated his original account. Notably, the body was discovered precisely where he had indicated. In March 2018, nearly 2 years after the crime, his trial commenced. The prosecutor's office during the criminal prosecution charged him with aggravated homicide, firstly due to the familial relationship between them, and secondly because it constituted an act of gender-based violence. The prosecution emphasized that Nestor's involvement in the crime was sufficiently established, particularly by the DNA traces found under Gabriella's fingernails, which matched the man's genetic profile. The prosecution acknowledged that Nestor's lack of a criminal record and stable employment were mitigating factors. However, Gabriella's age, the trust she had placed in him, the condition in which her body was discovered, and Nestor's conduct during the search for the young woman provided sufficient grounds to request a life sentence. Mariela Manili, the attorney representing Gabriella's family, charged him with aggravated triple homicide and femicide in her pleadings. The lawyer contended that the crime was thoroughly substantiated by solid evidence, demonstrating that on Friday, July 29, 2016, Nestor had called the teenager to meet him, subsequently taking her to his rented house, where he took her life before disposing of her body in bags. According to the lawyer, there was clear evidence of violence, power, and domination exerted by Nestor over Gabriella. She referenced numerous testimonies that detailed the mistreatment, harassment, and punishments he had inflicted, illustrating how he had taken control of her life. Mariela Manili described how the defendant never accepted Gabriella's decision to end their relationship, which ultimately led to the altercation that resulted in her death. She asserted that the crime was tied to the prevailing stereotypes of machismo in society, which view women as the property of their partners. These harmful stereotypes perpetuated an expectation for women to submit to men's desires, thereby hindering their ability to lead lives free from fear, threats, coercion, and violence. The defense highlighted that the forensic analysis of the injuries indicated overkill, suggesting prolonged suffering endured by Gabriella. The suffering was evident, and it was determined that this homicide was committed with malice aforethought, as Nestor had taken the girl to a location that posed no risk to him and where the victim was unable to defend herself. Furthermore, his affiliation with a security force was regarded as an aggravating factor, leading the attorney to request a life sentence. Nestor's defense counsel, Dr. Jorge Guillermo Campora, argued that all of the defendant's fundamental rights had been violated. The court did not admit the man's testimonial statements but did consider the alleged spontaneous confession. According to the defense, Nestor was not mentally fit to provide a valid confession. He acted under extreme nervousness and moral coercion, lacking the necessary freedom to do so. Consequently, the defense counsel requested the annulment of his confession, asserting that it was invalid due to being made at the police headquarters rather than in a judicial setting. After Nestor recanted his confession, the defense called into question the legality of the search and seizure conducted at his residence, as well as the forensic analyses performed, arguing for the nullification of both actions and any evidence derived from the purported confession. The lawyer pointed out the presence of an unidentified male in the genetic studies related to Gabriella's body, urging the investigation and identification of this individual, which raised doubts regarding Nestor's guilt. Lastly, the defense challenged the legal classification made by the prosecution regarding femicide, asserting that there was insufficient evidence to establish a context of gender violence linked to the homicide. They contended that, according to the civil code, the relationship between Nestor and Gabriella could not be categorized as one of a familial nature. However, the court rejected all the requests made by the defense. The defense was ultimately unsuccessful, and in April of that same year, Nestor was found guilty of double homicide and femicide to the detriment of his niece. Subsequently, he was sentenced to life imprisonment. In May 2021, following a thorough assessment of the evidence, the National Chamber of Cassation in the Criminal and Correctional Chamber upheld the sentence. This case, situated within the broader context of gender violence, reignites the urgent debate regarding the necessity for a more robust, solid, and effective state response to protect women and prevent violence. It also highlights troubling bureaucratic failures in evaluating the suitability of candidates for roles in the security sector. Moreover, it underscores how family dynamics and power structures can profoundly influence the behavior of those entrusted with the responsibility to protect and serve society. This tragic case serves as a stark reminder of the loss of a young girl who was just beginning to embrace life, only to have it cut short by an individual meant to serve and protect the community. Nestor represents a significant danger to society and must be kept away from the public. I have nothing more to add, except to say that if you found this video informative, please leave a like and remember to subscribe if you haven't already. I update my content 3 to 4 times a week, and if you're subscribed, you'll receive a notification each time I upload a new video. Until next time, goodbye.